feels like you're gonna hurt forever. What do you need? Each filament known by light. Earth that's happened, seed. Each drop of rain in fall. Each beast and breed. Ten thousand little leaves. 10,000 trees. My head is on fire. My head is on fire. Should I cut off my lids? Stare at the stone wall. Could you pacify my mind for me?
Yes. Checking this. There we go. Whew. Agriculture. I could listen to this shit all fucking day, man. The spiritual sound. Agriculture. Definitely up there for me for AOTY. I don't make lists. Some people ask me to do it, but what do I look like? A music critic? What do I look like? A journalist? You want me to? I do love to write. Never really been into reviewing or rating, making lists of music, things like that. Putting things with numbers. Music and numbers never mix. There's absolutely no math involved in making music. That's a fact. Take that to the bank. There's never been any math involved in music theory or in relation to production. Quantifying decibels and hertz has nothing to do with math. Do not ask me about this again. Hope everyone's all right. We doing a little. I guess this is the. Technically, it's the week on for me. We're not gonna be here next week. In between Christmas and New Year's, we will take off. But I'm on today. We got a few tracks. It's okay if it's a quick one. I do want to put on the record what our monthly project is going into January, into the new year. It just keeps getting fucking better, folks. We got all sorts of shit we got to talk about before we listen to any music. Once again, supported by, tech provided by our good friends at Tape Trade, our digital dub plates, our digital dub plate providers. There we go. Tape Trade, your digital dub trade. Tape Trade, your digital dub plate provider. Coming to theaters near you. Shout outs to them, as always. Looking at our fucking December playlist, it's actually fucking stacked, y'all. Got a lot of stuff on here. Always linking it in the show notes on the pod edition of this, once posted to the Patreon and to pod channels everywhere except for Spotify. Speaking of which, little co-plug for the Critical Listening podcast that I co-host with my good friend and true actual journalist of music, pioneer Liz Pelly. We just had our season finale, and we have Mr. Anthony Fanzano, Mr. Banthony Bambano. Very nice guy, you know? People got to get over their parasocial weirdness that they have with prominent content creators, you know? I don't watch all of his stuff. For one thing, I don't watch the Needle Drop. But I do watch the Fantano channel, which is when he just talks about things happening in the music industry. I find that much more interesting. And, you know, as we discuss in that episode, you know, the importance for journalists to provide more than just talking about the music itself, but the various things that make it up, to remind folks shit ain't made in a vacuum, whether it be politically or sociologically. There's much to discuss in that. You know, he's quite the articulate guy. So that's on the other Patreon, Critical Listening Patreon. Please go check it. But we will be posting that on public pod platforms later this week, just in time for the holidays, as an early treat, as the season finale to that comes to a head for 2025. What else? Anything? Okay, yeah. Monthly project. Real quick, going over monthly project for December through January. We have ourselves a fantastic guest. We have none other than Lawrence English, founder of Room 40 Recordings, and a fantastic composer, sound artist, electronic musician in his own right. Coming to us live from down under. That was a horrible impression. Very nice fellow. to help us out with our Found Sound Walk monthly project. So, real quick, reading it off. Using the power of studio magic, you are to create a virtual speculative sound walk using only found sounds you find on the internet and not your own field recordings. So for those unfamiliar, a sound walk is a physical walk through a specific listening space, often aided by original recorded musical or sonic arts material played back in ear. Since this is a virtual sound walk, you are to create this speculative listening space entirely within the box in the DAW. And since it's made entirely through found sounds, this speculative listening space doesn't need to necessarily exist in our literal world. So take us on a walk through this speculative virtual listening space and utilize the production and processing tools of your DAW to make it as immersive an experience as possible, using only the sounds you find online. Utilize resources such as freesound.org and other sound libraries of your choosing to gather materials, and reference the field recording compositions of composers such as Anya Lockwood, Francisco Lopez, and our very own guest facilitator this month, Lawrence English. Definitely check him out for some inspiration. So, just like last month with Joshua Eustace, we did a speculative film score where we created a scene musically that didn't necessarily exist in any visual media. We are now to take this a step further and to present a space or moving through a space, such as a sound walk. So to create a virtual soundscape using only sounds you find online opens up the potential for non-Earth environments, potentially, or fantastic environments, to go beyond the literal and non-fiction into something potentially fictional or expanding, mutated reality of some sort. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do. And make it as immersive as possible. Send us them WAV files. That will be our presentation for that will be on January 12th, Monday, January 12th, which is, I believe, 3 weeks from now at this point. Yeah. So in 3 weeks, 1, 2, 3, yeah. 3 weeks from now. In 2026. Get in on it. Get in on it. All right. Starting us off for funsies. Hold on. Let me get this out of here. Beep, 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 beep. Okay. Starting us off, I wanted to present something. Once again, throwing my shit in the ring. We had our field recording field trip workshop series earlier this month and a bit prior to that in November. It was a 3-parter. And 2 weeks ago, about just over 2 weeks ago, we had the actual meetup where folks met me in beautiful Poughkeepsie, New York, right along the water, and we did talk about a sound walk. We did a field recording. The field trip itself included walking several miles and recording as a group. The field recording club gang walking around, cops looking at us weird, literally, like, what are you guys doing? I told them we were getting samples. They understood that. If I said this is a field recording field trip, they wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But I said, oh, we're getting samples. There you go. Mike was there. That's right. So I figured I would play the one of the ideas that I came up with while I was recording out there, in which I did a lot of water recordings, slowed down, ultrasonic microphone recordings of water that were slowed down to capture, or rather to make audible more details that are missed with ultrasonic, real high-frequency microphones. And then combining that with contact mic recordings of a fence on the walkway over the Hudson, this big walking bridge, over the river. This very resonant metal fence, putting a contact mic on that, slowing it down, performing on the granular sampler with that. Just a fun little idea, set the mood. Here you go. There you go. Little zone for you. If this was speculative, this would work great for the monthly project, you know? But it's not speculative. This is all real life, dog. This happened. I lived it, you know? I enhanced it. Really just 2 sets of recording, though. We got water. Well, obviously, within the water recordings, there was some birds, some other stuff happening, you know? And then combining that with just the metal pole, having fun with that in the granular. Oh, I appreciate this breath play. You know what's interesting is because I've heard your work for several years and now I have a relationship to an album of yours. I could hear your compositional voice really strongly even here. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's not like too far-fetched to like see the connection between a field recording practice, like a soundscape, and field recording tape music practice, and how that might be conveyed, at least, you know, tying that into song structure or literal music, you know. And I think that my whole thing is space, negative space and positive space, I think, and slowness, pacing, and things like that. Obviously minimalism, and, you know, I mean, it's not necessarily about pleasing sounds. I think a lot of this water was really nasty sounding, you know. It's not that the Hudson was super polluted where I'm at, but there was, you know, some trash in the water, and slowing it down, I just wanted to kind of make it like sludge, you know. So it's not like I'm necessarily trying to make like a pleasing thing all around here. There's definitely a lot of pleasing moments, but like, I don't want you to space out to it necessarily. I want you to like sit in the space. Feeling immersed doesn't mean feeling spaced out with it, you know. You wrote, continued both in choice of recording and the way you edit. There's an identifiable alperness, especially the pacing. Yeah, exactly. Alperness, I like that. Well, especially for you because you use your recordings when you do literal music. That's true. That is true. And I encourage everyone to include field recordings in their singer-songwriter and pop music and club music and any types of music. Why the hell not? It's just a wonderful way to ground us somewhere. It doesn't need to be nature. You know, field recordings just means anything out of the studio. You know that, right? Field recording can be your kitchen. Field recording could be the room that you record in the studio, quote unquote, but not using the studio setup of proper miking and interface directly into the DAW, all that fun stuff, you know? Alperness is the grime side project. Yes. It's UK drill. Alperness, Mandem Alperness. Absolutely. Food fam. Exactly. Etc., etc. Not going to embarrass myself any further with that. Thanks for listening to that. Come to the next field recording field trip. I'm thinking about a field recording field trip tour, to be honest. Like a week long, make one large thing on the Discord, but like separate it across like several cities, and we all share. Because the big thing of this was that we all met afterwards for a private group critique where we were all to work on projects related to the recordings that we made. That just happened to be mine, you know. But imagining doing that over not just a single site, but several, and that still people could connect over the act of doing it, even remotely from one another, to still be able to have that as a sort of point of similarity, at least of origin, for however many pieces people make. I think that would be pretty fucking cool. If you want me to go to where you're at and do that, you let me know. Because I'm definitely trying to do more of that in 2026. More in-person workshops in general. Or just make you come to me. Hudson Valley, baby. All right. Up next, we got a track from Rep Mace. It submitted it yesterday. And they had put it in the public chat. But then they were coming to the private stream. But then we didn't have time to get to everybody. So we're listening to them now. Yeah, we should do fucking Revere Beach. Fucking Revere. Oh man, breath play. I gotta send you the my old camp counselors when I used to do like literal like music theater, like band camp, literal band camp stuff. Uh, she was a fantastic rock opera composer and comedian, and she had this whole thing, and she's a lesbian, and she did this whole musical stand up routine where she was doing being queer and revere. It was just this whole like kind of tango sort of thing. And then she says, but being Jewish, in revere, is even worse, than being queer. I remember that specifically. I hope you enjoy that. All right. Back to rep bass. Let's fucking go. New track, new participant. Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. Very nice stuff from Rep Mace. Blasphemia is the name of the track. I'm curious where they feel this is at as far as the piece itself. Is there more to it? I mean, it is it's a wonderful palette production wise, really enjoying the downward pitch on the metallic percussion instrument in relation to just the smack of bass that occurs, and it's obviously minimal, right? But part of me also feels like it's a bit stuck in the loop. Just finding ways to create variation in that would be nice. And that might be even like stripping it down to even less at certain points, to like give us complete moments of silence followed by like singular sounds, because the sound design is really lovely, but it feels like we're kind of just like in this one zone of all the sounds repeating their parts, 2.5 minutes, and that's it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt to a T repetitive, but not necessarily in a way that's like an arranged way, but rather like this is like pre-arrangement. These are the loops. These are the raw materials, at least as far as the raw patterns go, but not necessarily arranged specifically. In which case, I would want there to be the slight changes, or even like thinking of it like a DJ, like filter sweeping, including. I mean, it's pretty dry, which I enjoy, but I was gonna say like a delay across the board, a master bus sort of delay of some sorts, timed, dubbed out potentially. Just finding ways, usage of feedback with that. I don't know. Just curious as to like if there's a deliberate sort of like set in ways aesthetic going on here, including like the choice of repetition. Because if that's the case, then like, all right, there you go. Then I think it should be more than 2.5 minutes, though. I think we should because right now it's like not demanding enough of a duration for me to feel like this amount of repetition is intentional. Just over 2 minutes, like that doesn't feel like song length to me. If we were like truly about this ultra repetition and really staying in one zone, like to give this a full song length, 5 minutes would be the bold choice here. And if there were to be changes, to let them be like gradual over a much more song length period of time. But right now it feels too short to feel one way or the other. Curious what the direction is, or like the light at the end of the tunnel here, like what the goal is and how we can find our way to that here. So rep mes, wherever you are tomorrow, probably hearing this, you let us know in the Discord where you posted it. Breathplay writes, I love this. I love how all the sound design trickery works in service of the funk. I think it's brushing up against the common Group Critique Fight Club thing where you've made a stage waiting for a lead. Classic. Another classic Alperism, whatever. A thing that I say. Creating the bed for some sort of lead instrument here. Yeah, I'm curious about that too, because the repetitiveness can serve as that bed, no doubt. But then there would need to be something on top of this sort of guiding it as the lead. It doesn't need to necessarily be like some big melodic instrument. What would fit with something like this is a good question, because it's not really like a tonal piece in any traditional harmonic way. It kind of adds like a neutrality to the tonality of this. Like you could potentially go in a few different directions and lay into dissonance as well if you wanted to. Some sort of lead dissonant instrument. A rapper, there you go. Some sort of spoken word, rap, cut up vocal, spoken samples even, Great idea. Yeah. Definitely think about that. Yeah, could absolutely just be asking for. In which case, like, then you might want to think of a shorter song or keeping it at this shorter length, And even 2.5 minutes, this is showing my fucking age and distaste for the kids these days making 70-second songs, full-length songs, pressure to do so, whether they realize it or not, so that people will listen to it again and rack up more fucking metrics on streaming platforms. Ugh. Look, can't escape from audio formats and technology determining, or at least in somewhat affecting compositional form, right? This whole writing a song, making an album, all this shit is less than 100 years old as like an actual commercial concept, in the way that we think about it, technologically capturing sound in the air and then selling it. And, being limited by certain durations and stuff like that. But this idea of, from a very cynical perspective, of the individual potentially being able to game the system, whether it be stream farms or just put that shit on repeat while you sleep, it's the classic platform incentivizing, using its own corrupt practices to incentivize a corrupt individual practice, you know? Corruption breeds corruption, blah, blah, blah. I'm ranting here, but 2.5 minutes, I guess, is actually a full length song by those metric standards. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not. As far as I'm concerned, what we have here is not a full length song. And what we need is something to bring us there, whether it be expanding in duration, slowly changing things out in arrangement, or potentially adding some sort of lead instrument. Yes, that's why. Breath play. That's why. A shorter song incentivizes potentially, you know, if you really fucking like it, you're going to listen to it again, right? But like the shorter it is, the more often you're able to do that in like one sitting, right? You'll potentially get tired of it after X amount of repetitions rather than Y, which might be a shorter amount if it were a longer song, you know? I got 10 minutes. I'm going to listen to this song as many times as possible. A 90-second song, I'm going to be racking up like 6 plays or something like that, you know? But if it were a 3-minute song, I'd only be racking up like 3 plays, you know? So it's a very cynical way of you know, maximizing a corrupt system, you know? Yeah, fun stuff, man. In this essay, I will R.I.P. to Jonathan Stern, sound studies scholar and you know, true scholar, like the go-to guy on like the MP3. You know, like a real OG when it comes to this scholarly sort of like socio-political materialist approach to like why audio exists the way it is, why albums exist, and like means of distributing music, you know, like how it comes to be and why habits become normalized, blah, 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 and ultimately become like the standard way of doing things, you know? And this is just one other chapter in that. It's just, I don't know if it's ever been so mask off corrupt. We used to hide these things. Payola used to be a thing that you would do. It would be frowned upon because it's illegal, you know? But hey, we're living in mask off clown world times, cynical times, slop casino times. Sorry, Rep Mace, for ranting over your critique. Let us know. What do you think? Where should this expand to? What do you want this to expand to as a composition? If we're going to keep it at this shorter length, though, I agree with breath play. Give us a lead instrument to, you know, tie it all together in a more condensed package. If not, go for more patience. Expand the arrangement out more. Whew. Good shit. All right. Who we got up next on this? MH. Is that Mike? Is that Mike on there? What do we got? Easter Haze. Easter Haas. Easter Haze. What'd you write? Here's one I did last year, forgot about, and recently rediscovered. There are a bunch of synth loops of various lengths that are offset on different tracks, using the DAW more like a tape machine. Some tracks are converted to MIDI and run through other synths, with several different delays across different tracks and 2 others on returns. Not exactly generative, but more about letting randomness happen. I do like me some randomness. Let's go. All right. All right. Thank you, Mike. Very, very nice. I think this is once again one of those cases, man, where we've set ourselves a foundation for a lead instrument to play over. You know me, man. I'll be loving some drones. I'll be loving some repetition here. But I think that, like, if there's not going to be much timbral change to the synths, whether it be through filters or envelopes, or to be like increasing the effects in a more exaggerated sort of way. I know there's plenty of verb and delay on this, and we can hear that tail end, especially at the end there. If there's not going to be like more clear cut sort of intentionality of changes there for this length of a song, because this is about 6 minutes, just over 6 minutes, right? This is once again one of those things where, like, we can turn this into a more psyched out sort of drone jam track through a lead instrument. Like you could just improvise over this and you would be in purely kosmisch sort of territory. But on the other hand, it's like, speaking of kosmisch, like there's the entire like Faust side of that krautrocky world in which they would do 20 minutes of something like this with no change. But the fact that it's a live band rather than generative instruments or single electronics makes this more of this entrancing. Like if you listen to the Faust with Tony Conrad Dream Syndicate record, there would be tracks of just like bah 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 bah, just quarter notes, single notes, and then maybe just like drone violin over that for 15 minutes. No change. That would be it. But it's this monolith sort of, that the duration in classic true New York minimalist and like krautrock sort of fashion is doing it for a long time is what creates is part of the ethos of the piece here. So you could take it in that direction here and expand on it, in which case I would like want you to like give the listener as a longer form piece like the chance to get entranced by maybe potentially just like on an upward slope, bringing in your delay sooner so that we're starting to like just feel the abstraction of rhythm, or rather like clear cut rhythm, as like the potential feedback of your delay increases over a slower period of time, slower than 6 minutes, honestly. To treat this like true minimalism, to make an entire set out of this jam, and not just a song, right? So there's one, and then the other direction would be to just keep it at this length and give us that lead instrument. That's the simpler option here, is to just find something to improvise as the final say in this. What's going to ride on top of all of this, Just thinking about what could we use to complete this right now. It just needs a compositional ethos for it to feel complete, if you ask me. It needs something to tie it in. Breathplay wrote, one thing I think is useful and often overlooked in generative stuff is to have big changes on a long interval, 64 bars, 2 minutes in that case. I'd like the drone note to change. Sure. We could keep it just as repetitive, but over the course of 64, 128 bars, you just have, it's not song structure, it's just a repetition point over a much longer period of time. We lose sight of the repetition the further away from that repeat point we get, So to create something that's of some larger scale as well would also create the illusion of a song structure if it were to be a chord change every 64 to 128 bars or something like that, It would also, that would create a bit more, if you were to improvise over that as well, there would you give yourself that much more material to respond to potentially. And what if you were to create a lead instrument? What would that be? Imagining a nice soft envelope, padded but monophonic synthesizer or something playing over this more rigid staccato synthesized sound would be a really nice sort of contrast there. Josh says, my brain went into the sack, but the song was so low-key, maybe something like an oboist exploring... Yeah. An oboist, a digital, or... Yeah, Mike, go hire an oboist. Yes, something to contrast. It's definitely mids and low. Is that what you mean by low-key? Yes, absolutely. Something that could rise above that, for sure. I mean, that's why I was sort of mentioning like a monophonic but soft padded envelope synthesizer of some sort. French horn. There we go. That's that brass pad sound right there. Soft brass. Absolutely. Stars of the Lid very famously had both French horn and trombone on their later records, When done right, very gentle instruments that could, Send that through some dubbed out delay and verb. Get yourself a stew. Got a stew. Overblown French horn on this. Not overblown. Not overblown. Come on. I don't know. Double reads only. We get them all in there. I saw someone send me some electroacoustic bassoonist with a pickup in his bassoon, sending that through time delay, playing some wild shit. Give us some lead. Some lead. All right. Good shit. Thank you, Mike. We got one more, I think. It is breath play. Sunday Fighters know I've been exploring a fusion of dub techno and ambient with adult contemporary and quiet storm. A common pitfall of fusions, and one thing I want to make sure I avoid, is to overly anchor in one and treat the other as an accent, i.e. dub techno with quiet storm flavor. Today I'm testing my ability to do that with this mix, which puts vocal stems of Sade's Kiss of Love over a track of 90s ambient comp music from memory released last year. I ran the Sade vocals through a pretty gnarly Ableton effects chain that dubbed it out in Rekordbox as well. Does it feel like Sade is just a decorative provocation here? Or does it actually feel like I'm offering something new to the instrumental by introducing a soul song to it? I'm liking this combo. In theory. Let's check it out. Phoenix at Desert versus Kiss of Life. Beautiful. Really, really nice. This is, I feel, in many ways getting back to some of the stuff that you presented years ago in the earlier versions of Fight Club, before going under the Breath Play name. Your deconstructed pop songs that you would sing, they would be much more on the, I would say, dark ambient rather than light ambient side of things. But the deconstructed, stripped down as far as instrumentation goes, drumless often, and spaced out sort of pop covers. Yeah, no, they were fantastic though. They were fantastic. They were really, really nice. I think that like this is bringing me to that in a light, more euphoric, in many ways, sort of like touching on the melancholy that Sade sort of evokes through this, I would say, matching emotional sort of bed that this piece of ambient music, this particular arpeggiator work from this compilation that you had mentioned, it also evokes very similarly. It feels liminal. Doesn't necessarily feel like we're meant to be feeling just this, right? Like it leading towards something else. I think that you can be a bit more deliberate in the sort of arrangement of the effects of Sade's voice. I think there were certain moments that I would have really liked to have been scooped out of the dub into a much more dry contrast, like hearing that hook, when I was with you, like I would have really loved to have been brought back to that initial, like subdued, dried, and very filtered, you like applied heavily the high pass filter to the voice. And maybe that was just the stem itself. I'm not sure. The vocal a cappella that you managed to get out of that. But like, to me, it was like, we need to get back to that at certain points. I think the choice of effects and the usage of dub delay and flooding it in verb is very effective at certain points. But I think I still think that there needs to be like, a back and forth of some sort. And you could treat it just like song structure. Like the verse continues to get more and more spaced out. And then like the second we hit the hook, we bring us back into something dry once again, just a contrast, the usage of arrangement to not like fully lay in from the wetness, and it could just be very deliberate, and you don't even need to think about when you do it. You just follow the song structure and make the changes when there are changes in the original Sade song, because the ambient arpeggiator track is a nice, consistent, sympathetic bed of harmony. Doesn't matter where it's happening in that, as long as you're locked in rhythmically to what's happening on the arpeggiators. You could make those changes and effects based entirely just on the Sade side. You don't have to worry about the ambient instrumental. You're right. We were talking about wide dynamics of this genre yesterday, after all. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, this is a Sade. That melancholia doesn't mean quiet, doesn't mean sad or angry necessarily. There are moments of peaks and things like that. And then we can reflect that just through feedback and wetness versus dryness, and much more dynamic, present, drastic sort of changes that could be very immediate. It'd be really nice to like hear the tail of the verse start to dissipate while a dry chorus voice comes through that, to create that contrast. And I'm not sure if that would be done more meticulously or effectively, to do it more meticulously in the DAW and then bounce it as such, as sort of a creating the remix of the vocal stem to then just play back without having to worry too much about those live arrangements with the faders as a DJ, I'm not sure what would be more effective. I think obviously the more surgical way to do it would be in the DAW, just automating, pointing and clicking, and just finding those moments and having the most control over it. But I mean, there's plenty of things that can change your mind in the moment, hearing it using the record box effects or the built-in delay and stuff of the DJ software. Okay, so you say I disagree. I think this needs to happen with live musicianship. If it's complex, then the thing to do is rehearse. There you go. I respect that. I respect that chutzpah. I respect that. That's tough. True orthodoxy. Get good. Practice your instrument. Good shit. I meant more if there was like a specific delay that you were using that you felt an affinity for, that's like a literal plug-in, like VST. Do they make VSTs for Rekordbox? Is that possible with DJ software to use third-party effects? Because that's my biggest gripe with the hardware, with the DJMs and all that. You know, you have the multi-effects built into the Pioneer gear. If you want something beyond that of some different capacity, you know, it's kind of like playing a hardware set. You just got to bring your own effects, you know, which I have seen. I've seen vinyl-only sets where someone brings like a Roland Space Echo or something like that. Keep it analog. I've seen pedals as auxiliary effects on DJ mixers, you know. I think you could use plugins in some other software, Serato maybe. I don't think Rekordbox does, unfortunately. I don't think so with Serato. I've used a lot of Serato. I do not believe so, but I might be wrong. Anyways, yeah. Get more deliberate in them effects. Yeah, exactly. Use the Eventide. That's why I'm saying, like, if you weren't set in your ways about it being a live performance thing, then I would say apply the very specific effects change that you want in the DAW and spin it that way, you know? But you're giving yourself a challenge. I respect that. Go for it. Practice the instrument. If it's complex, the answer is to rehearse. Keep rehearsing. All right, good shit, y'all. Lovely, lovely stuff. We'll keep it quick. Today. Fantastic work. We got ourselves how many tracks in this here month? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 tracks for the month of December. Our GCFC December 2025 end of year group playlist. I will post the link to this on the Discord so that everybody can just have it. Really good stuff. Loving these. We got to make a mega compilation once we do a full year of this compiled on the on my personal tape trade account. We'll just have to make one massive one. This is awesome, y'all. Really, really happy to be hearing the going through end of the year strong, you know? Keeping it productive. Just stay on the horse. 2026. Big things coming, yo. As the kids say, right? Big things coming. So, we won't be getting up next week on the 29th. We will be back on January 5th, 2026. And then the week after that, we have our monthly project presentations. Happy holidays, everybody. Enjoy. Eat something nice. Treat yourself. If you're not being treated to, treat yourself. Enjoy. Listen to some music. Listen critically. Listen deeply. Sit down with a record. Allot yourself a day to just sit down with some records. Do nothing but listen to music. If you can't do that in your day-to-day, try to give yourself 1 hour to do that. Treat yourself. For the spirit. All right, y'all. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. I will see you in January. Have a good one. Take care.